5 stars.
Better than any other commission?
I actually watched last December's meeting on YouTube, and 28 people had looked at it. So
I didn't know that.
I didn't know it was on YouTube till I
You have an
searched
audience
for it.
And we are
I
live.
think maybe when we, okay, well then, I'd like to call to order the first meeting of the Edina Transportation Commission in 2021 on January 21st. Andrew, would you do the roll call, please?
Gladly. Commissioner Aller.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Kane.
Yeah, what happened to Bokar?
I was on mute for the first time.
Oh, okay, real good.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Lafferty.
Here.
Commissioner McCarthy. Commissioner Plum-Smith.
Here.
Chair Richmond.
Here.
Commissioner Shearer. Commissioner Attree.
Here.
Commissioner Clark. And Commissioner Kariwala.
Here.
I missed, did you say Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, then Andrew, you gonna share your screen so we can take a look at the agenda?
Yes, I will. There it is. Not this. These
There
are my
it is.
notes.
Okay. Well, the first order of business is to approve the meeting agenda. And I would like folks to know that a number of us have been having conversations about the speed limit policy. And it occurs to us that that it's possible that we as a commission may have a majority of folks who feel one way or another about the speed limit proposal. So if anybody else is interested in this, perhaps you could make a motion to add this to the reports and recommendations section of the agenda.
I would like to make a motion to add that section to the spot in our agenda, like you mentioned, Lori.
Okay.
I second that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Booker.
Yep.
All in favor, please vote aye when Andrew calls your name, and if you're opposed, please vote nay. We're going to reopen the conversation about the speed limit policy that we had a lengthy conversation about the last time to see if we have a sort of either a majority or even a unanimous preference about what is actually sent on to council. And if so, then we would write maybe an advisory communication or something. Is that right, Andrew?
But what we're voting on at this moment is simply to add a line to the agenda to have this discussion.
That's correct.
Yes, you'd be adding essentially an item 5C to the agenda to continue the discussion on the local speed limit evaluation.
Because it was omitted from the agenda, is that why you're saying?
Yes, because it was not on the, because it's not currently on the agenda.
Gotcha. Okay, all good.
Is everybody clear what we are voting yay or nay on? Yay for adding it to the agenda, nay for not. Okay.
Commissioner Aller.
Yay.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yay.
Commissioner Kane.
Yeah.
Commissioner Lafferty.
Yay.
Commissioner McCarthy. Is Bruce still gone? Looks like he is still gone. Commissioner Plum-Smith.
Yay.
Chair Richmond.
Yay.
Commissioner Shearer. Motion is approved.
Great. Are there any other changes that anybody would like to propose to the agenda? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of 5C.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor of approving the agenda with the addition, please say aye when Andrew calls your name.
Commissioner Aller,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Kane,
Aye.
Commissioner Lafferty,
Aye.
Commissioner Plum Smith,
Aye.
Chair Richmond.
Aye.
Agenda's approved.
Great. Next order of business is approval of the meeting minutes. You all had an opportunity to read those. Any changes? Kirk, are you talking?
Yes, thank you. Sorry. I didn't have a change, but maybe a question. I noticed there are a lot of more content than usual, which is appreciated. Is it helpful to leave open questions in the meeting notes, like on section B, the draft travel TDM? Like it had staff comments of questions that are now they're not answered. So I just want to throw it out there if that's useful or if they should be answered.
Andrew, I think that's in your court.
Yeah. I guess they're the commission minutes technically, so I would leave that up to the commission. If the commission thinks there's value in having the staff response to those questions included in the minutes, I can amend them as such.
I will say when I was reviewing the minutes, I found it useful that the comments were there, and then I was trying to remember what would happen to those comments. So yes, whether it's either the answers that staff provided be included in the minutes, or a reference to what the next step is would be useful. So in some cases, I'm thinking there may not be an answer. It might be these comments will be included in whatever the next report or step is.
Any other comments about the minutes? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. All in favor of approving the minutes as written, please signify by saying aye when Andrew calls your name.
Commissioner Aller,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Kane,
Aye.
Commissioner Lafferty,
Aye.
Commissioner Plum Smith,
Aye.
Chair Richmond.
Aye.
Minutes are approved.
Great. We're zipping along.
Dang it. Come on, let me close this.
Real good. Okay, I think that we are into the reports and recommendations. And I think the first thing is the traffic report, traffic safety report.
Sure is.
Okay, we have, I think, 3 actual A items, as I recall. The first one is a request for users between Aspasia, is that how you say that? Circle and West Shore Drive. Bokar, this is your neighborhood, is that right?
Yes, in that, yes, in my neighborhood.
Comments, concerns?
No, I think we already have the staff recommending to add one, so
Okay.
And just for, if I may, for a little bit of background, this item was actually already brought to the commission, I believe,
That's
one or
what I
two traffic ago. And the commission at that time recommended that staff reconsider putting signage up in the area.
Good.
Great. Thank you.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification and thank you for reconsidering.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks for your review. That's why we do this, right?
It's awesome. Okay, and now there's a request for a crosswalk over Blake Road at Scriber Road. And staff recommends, so is this intersection happening this summer, Andrew?
No,
The reconstruction project?
the reconstruction from on Blake from Scriber to the north is currently scheduled for 2022.
Okay,
So we're recommending to postpone installation, or basically to include installation of that crosswalk as part of that project, so that we don't install it this year to potentially have it torn up and worn away when we do the recon project the following year.
okay. Since there have been no crashes at the intersection in the past 10 years, is everyone comfortable with that? I see some nods. Okay. Okay, and then moving on to A3, this one just sort of cracked me up. Be like, yeah, you need to be able to go straight ahead.
This one actually was a comment that Commissioner Shearer had made at a previous meeting, noting that there wasn't a designation for a through movement.
Yeah,
It is confusing. That's my Walgreens, and you never know what people are going to do in that intersection. So I'm glad they're
I
adding the arrow.
yep,
Makes sense.
yep. Okay, should we move on to the B items? This is a crosswalk over Valley View Road at Cheyenne Trail and Mark Terrace. I think it goes one way on one side and the other way at the other side. Is that right, Andrew?
It's an offset. It's an offset intersection. If I can zoom in here a little bit. So here's Valley View, and then Cheyenne
yeah.
to the north, and Mark Terrace. So the request is for a crosswalk at either intersection, which are both really close to each other.
Okay, and what, I know that it doesn't meet the warrants, but what is the warrant level? It seems like that's a pretty high amount of average daily traffic.
I believe 20 crosses in the peak hour is what our current warrant requires.
Wow, it's close. Comments?
When I looked at this one, I was thinking if there is a crosswalk, because they're kind of these offset intersections, I thought it might be confusing to drivers. So I was agreeing with the staff recommendation because I was thinking if there is a crosswalk, it's one that might be violated a lot and therefore be more hazardous to pedestrians instead of making it safer for them. So that's why I thought the staff recommendation was a good one.
Will this be a crosswalk, adding to your comment, Mindy, where you push the button and the lights flash, or just like the yellow sign that says crosswalk?
If it were, I guess it depends. So the level of treatment depends on a number of things, including the pedestrian volume, vehicle traffic, and the roadway configuration itself. So the kind of the bare minimum treatment that this could potentially qualify for would be just the painted crosswalk.
I'm not sure those are very effective.
Yeah. Did the request include placement of where that crosswalk would be in relation to the offset roads?
No, it just generally suggested either the intersection with Cheyenne or the intersection with Mark Terrace Drive.
Okay. Any of you students live in this area and have thoughts about this? No. Okay.
I also had one more question. Is there a sidewalk on the south of Valley View Road? Or wait, or on the
There-
whatever, on the side towards Cheyenne Trail, whichever that is.
There is not. So there's
Okay.
the new active route to school sidewalk on the south side of Valley View has we just completed it from Gleason all the way down to the roundabout this past summer. Mark Terrace and Cheyenne don't have sidewalks, and they're not currently recommended to have sidewalks per the Ped and Bike Master Plan.
I grew up in this neighborhood, and as one of the few walkers in the area, it's not very it's not very ped friendly. But on the other hand, there hadn't been a lot of walkers. It's been a long time since I've been over there, and I'm just not sure where that placement would be. And so the crosses that were observed, were they? Do you know from Nick if they were just kind of all over the place?
So I only have a breakdown of the total crosses. So 75 crosses were observed in a day.
Okay.
Of those,
Oh, I see.
so the majority were at Cheyenne, and 19 were at Mark Terrace.
Okay. At some point, it might be great to go back and do that. It seems like it would make sense that if you were to put a crosswalk there, it would go at Cheyenne, given the significant more crossings that happened there. So maybe to observe the crossing specifically where the crosswalk might go in might be helpful. Not sure.
It would also be good to revisit a count when the high school is meeting in person. I'm presuming this was done while the high school has been on remote learning.
Oh, good point.
Therefore, in which case, 75 crosses when there aren't students walking to school, and that's part of what we're hoping this new sidewalk will encourage.
Right.
That actually says a lot. So it would be interesting to know if it does help with walking to school, and if there's a more of a need when school is actually meeting in person again.
That's a really great point. Andrew, could you have Nick put that on his on his request list to just go back and do that once there actually is school in session and it's maybe a more walkable time of the year?
Yeah,
I mean,
I can ask to put it as I would have him put it as a lower priority, but
right.
we can
Perfect.
we can look into evaluating it when school's in session.
That's great. Thank you. And then the request to restrict pedestrians on the Browndale Avenue Bridge. How many requests about Browndale Avenue Bridge are we going to get, do you think, in the 3 years time? And I personally really agree with the staff. I mean, it's a public right of way. Any concerns or questions about that?
Street, I guess I don't know that.
Yeah.
What's
It's a street bridge, and to walk on it as a pedestrian is kind of frightening, but I mean, it's still across the bridge. There's probably 18 inches of
just a
railing
little growth.
area you
Oh.
can walk on.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, Peter, you know the area because if you've
Okay.
ever gone down 50th, it's where everybody turns left to then go across the creek and into the neighborhoods. And yeah, it's not pedestrian friendly. And gosh, we've had several traffic safety reports or requests specific to this area, but cars are just going to have to yield to pedestrians here.
Yep. That's the same spot where the canoes come off of the water
Yep.
to traverse
Yep.
as well.
And then the last B item is the request for a decorative stop sign post. It's like, I want one of those decorative. I agree with staff on this.
Yeah, I was curious. I agree with staff on this one, but I also was curious whether decorative stop signs, if there's any studies that show whether they have a traffic calming or a higher compliance rate because they attract people's attention to stopping and actually looking at the post.
Or do they detract because people are looking at the post and not the stop sign?
Maybe that too.
Hi, Bruce.
I don't. Yeah, to my knowledge, I don't. I'm not aware of any studies on decorative traffic control devices, but that's a chief concern we have to reinstalling these is that they could potentially be distracting to someone compared to a typical street sign, a
Yeah.
typical stop sign.
It looks like that's a tulip. What if we put like a Venus flytrap on there?
Or what if somebody just does the yarn bomb on the wood post and
Yeah,
knits
see,
around it
There, that's the advice
Mhm.
to the neighborhood. They can decorate their own when it's a
With yarn.
regular post. Yeah, the wooden one almost makes it look like it's not an official stop sign because
Yeah.
it's so decorative.
Agreed. Well, so Andrew, is the recommendation that you will then go fix that decorative one and put in just a standard post?
So I believe this was a proactive request that it was the opinion of the resident that this sign was in need of replacing, and so they asked if they could be replaced with one that looks like the picture on the right.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Public Works has gone out and done an assessment of whether or not, in their opinion, this sign needs to be replaced. But basically, what we're saying is, if it does need to be replaced, we're not going to replace it in kind. We're going to replace it with a MUTCD compliant standard post.
Real good.
And then going forward, when we run into similar signs in other parts of the city that need to be replaced, we'll also replace them with a standard sign.
Real good.
Andrew, are they asking to replace this because it's cumbersome? It blocks the sight, the visibility of the driver or people, or what?
To my knowledge, no. To my recollection, it was purely an aesthetic choice, an aesthetic request.
Well, they said it was that the wood framed stop sign post is in need of replacement. So maybe it's in bad shape. You can't really tell that from this picture.
Another reason why we don't typically secure our signs to wooden posts.
Yep. Real good. Any other questions or concerns about the traffic safety report, issues on the D items?
Yeah, I wanted to look at a few D items. Can you go down to D4?
Certainly.
I think it's, hold on, yeah. So I think D4 and D5, was there any outcome to what's going to happen? I didn't understand there was a closure to the request.
Sure. So related to item D4, I believe there was a portion of 77th Street was overlaid by our Public Works Department last summer, and another portion of it was overlaid by the developer of the Pentagon Village project. I believe it was either 2020 or the year prior. But between those two projects, we believe that some of the loop detectors at one or both of those intersections may have been compromised. So we alerted MnDOT to it. We've spoken with the developer, and I believe we're still in discussions with those two entities to determine how to address the problem.
So does it mean then we need to probably bring it back somewhere so we can get resolution?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, I can bring it back when there's a resolution.
And then the D5.
And then, sorry, I just need to refresh my memory on D5.
All right. I have the kids. So the other one was a D5, right? So the width of the pavement, basically there was not enough space, right?
Hmm.
Was there any recommendation the city or that was given to make sure that the problem is solved, despite the fact we cannot do what they're asking for? Or is it just something we just put on D?
Well, so the request was to add lane markings. We determined that the roadway section is there. It's not feasible to put in lane markings, so that's
Right.
our determination.
Is it possible to, instead of making it 2 lanes, make it clear where what the shoulder is, like what the actual travel lane is? I mean, my guess is that cars are actually using it as 2 lanes, even though it's not really wide enough, and that's why they asked for lane markings. I could be wrong.
Or other fees, like other treatment that would suit maybe what the city thinks would be the best solution for that, so we don't have the same issue all the time.
The way this is worded, it sounds like the request is asking for 2 southbound lanes. Which I don't see a reason why we would need 2 southbound lanes in that location.
Is this the southbound Normandale Boulevard? So it's on the east side of 100?
I believe the report said the west side, west of 100.
Oh yeah.
So that would be this intersection.
So if that's people coming,
So I believe it's okay. So I think it's for basically this section here.
right?
I would assume that the 2 lanes, then you'd basically have a designated. You'd have a left turn lane or a left through lane, and then a right turn lane or a right through
Right.
lane.
Right.
But the problem is this section is too narrow to support 2 lanes.
Yeah.
And you can see there is a little bit of a shoulder that's striped.
Okay. Is the is there a 4-way stop at that intersection now?
There is now.
Correct.
Okay. So the
If you-
problem of vehicles holding up traffic by turning left there shouldn't be an issue. Because that would be my guess. Somebody wants to not be sort of bottled up. But it should move along okay because of the stop signs.
Yeah, that all-way stop has been in place for I think a year or 2 now, and
Yeah.
I mean we've gotten this used to be an intersection that we would get frequent calls about, and I don't know if I heard anything about this intersection all year.
Okay. Anything else on the D items, folks?
No. Thank you, Andrew.
Sure.
Okay, hearing none, I'll take a motion to request the traffic safety report with the recommendation that the B item with the
D4.
crosswalk on Valley View in the Cheyenne area be reviewed when school is in session.
And the D4 item, right? To be
What was
brought back.
the D4 item?
Yeah.
That was Bocar's request to basically take off the D4 item and bring it back when the issue has been resolved.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, anyone want to make a motion with those 2 changes?
Make a motion to approve it with those 2 changes.
Thank you. Is there a second? Is that you, Peter?
Yes.
Great. It's been moved and seconded. Andrew?
Sorry, just trying to keep up on my notes here. All right. Commissioner Aller,
All right.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Kane, Commissioner Lafferty, Commissioner McCarthy,
Aye.
Commissioner Plum-Smith, Commissioner Plum-Smith.
Aye.
Thank you. Chair Richmond
Aye.
and Commissioner Shearer's still gone? Yes. All right. Approved.
Great. Now we're on, work plan review is next.
Indeed it is.
Yay, we're on a different work plan.
Happy New Year.
Exactly. In so many ways. It's happy. Okay, initiative 1. Jill, organized trash collection.
Yeah, well, Andrew sent me the charter for Vantage, the program that's taking students to, study trash collection in Edina. And they've got a lot of lofty goals. I'm assuming that we'll wait for the first kickoff meeting to see, how they plan to, execute some of the research and what they're doing. But other than that, maybe Andrew has more insight into moving forward with them.
No, like you said, we're expecting an email from their project team. Up till now, I've basically been communicating with their program director, who is a teacher at Minnetonka High School, to draft their charter, basically outlining what exactly they're going to study. And now it's in the hands of their student team. So their student leader will be contacting us to set up a kickoff meeting. I believe in mid-February is when they planned.
Right. So I think Andre was the director. Is this someone that I should reach out to? Or should we just go through you, Andrew, or what do you prefer?
The way that I kind of thought might be the easiest way to kind of streamline the process would be to basically for me to act as a middleman between the project team and the commissioners that are participating in it. So, I mean, I can certainly give you Andre's contact information. Once the project gets going, the student members are probably who we're going to be dealing with more directly rather than Andre. I would say once the project starts, we'd probably only talk to Andre if we have some kind of issue or questions pertaining to the project team members. But basically, when the project team members if they need resources or questions from me, I'll loop in the commission, and if the commission has comments or feedback to provide, I'll help facilitate getting those to the project team as well.
Okay, so we just kind of are in a holding pattern for commissioners until at least the kickoff meeting, and we hear from you then.
Not necessarily. I mean, the commission, keep in mind, their project is only going to go until I think the middle of April or so.
Right.
So if commissioners on their own want to do some research and investigation, you certainly can.
Okay.
The other thing I just wanted to highlight with this that I didn't catch before this week was that recall I was originally thinking that this council charge would be like a study and report, but City Manager Neal actually recommended it as a review and recommend. So just saying
okay.
that in the final deliverable that the commission puts together, there's an opportunity to actually include recommendations and not just findings. Just something to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Jill, I want to offer this up to you because this might be something interesting to you. I noticed, and it was probably 2 months ago in the Star Tribune, that Richfield had implemented organized trash collection. I'll bet they have research data on it. So you may want to reach out to Richfield, and because that's new. I mean, that's just like within the last few months, I believe.
Okay.
And so whatever data they have must be fairly current.
Yep, I'm happy to do that. On any of the communications then, just because I think I've had confusion on this past. Anything that I communicate with Richfield, should I CC you and Andrew on as well?
You don't need to.
For emails or?
Yeah, I think you, it's my opinion, maybe I don't know the rules, but I think you can just go ahead and reach out to them and get whatever information you
Oh.
can.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Yep,
there's
I'm
not
happy
a
to do that.
Yep.
yeah, there's not a need to copy us,
Yeah.
unless you want to, or unless Lori or I had a desire for you to do so.
I
Okay.
think Kirk is
Great.
Kirk, you're on that one also, right?
I dreamed I was, but I'm not. I'm not a lead. But
You're not a- no,
I'm
you're not
happy
a
to help
lead,
if I could. And
Okay.
You got to put his name in there, Andrew.
yeah, whatever works. Happy to help. But Jill's, you're going to be great at this.
Yeah.
And you can think of
So-
good garbage slogans too, because I know you're great with it.
Oh, we could. We could totally make Edina garbage slogans all day, every day.
Perfect.
Kirk, do you want to be added as a co-lead? Because we can change leads at any time.
I don't mean to make it awkward. You could. It's up to Jill. Why don't you just
Oh, please add him. Don't take me off,
or
Andrew.
leave it as
No,
is.
I won't.
Leave it as is, and I can support her. However, I don't care.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for taking that on, Jill. And I think
It's a fun project. I think it'll be interesting.
totally. Matt is not on our meeting, so I guess we will skip Initiative 2 on the Street Funding Task Force. Clover Ride. Mindy.
We actually got an update on Clover Ride. Actually, Andrew, can you share the whole email? It might be, I know for me, it's always easier to read along if someone's reading something to us.
Yeah, let's see.
I can talk in the meantime of.
Here it is.
There we go. So for 2020, they reported we had an average of 7 riders per day. I don't know if we know what the average was the prior year in 2019.
Prior to the pandemic, our average had been 18 riders a day.
Okay. But after June, they were only able to transport 4 or 5 riders at a time. Therefore, it was kind of hard to get very far to get their average up because they were restricted in that. So thus far, January's ridership is up to 8 people per week. So that's 7 per day, included before they had restrictions on the bus. They're following the same safety protocols with masks for drivers and riders, daily driver self-screenings, routine sanitizing of touch points, and overall cleaning and fogging of buses. And starting next week, they will all be equipped with the hanging plastic dividers, which they provided pictures of. That is the plastic sheets between the rows, and therefore they can use every row.
Yeah.
Which before I think they could only use every other row, thus restricting. So now they will be able to accommodate more riders per ride. And then they said, anecdotally, the driver says it's getting busy like before, as if people are starting to be more comfortable moving and making use of the bus again. So they also noted for us that looking at the stop data, that Target has jumped above Lunds and Byerly's for the first time. And clearly Yorktown Continental Apartments are the most popular stop, where that might be an interesting question of whether Yorktown has any advice of how so many riders are making use of it. If there's anything they do at that complex that makes residents more aware of the Clover Ride, or that they make it easy by making sure that they notify residents when the bus is about to stop, or so if there's anything they do in particular there that might make them might make it easier or something for their residents. That is that why they're, or is it just because they have a larger number of residents at that complex?
That's a good suggestion.
Because if they do something in particular, right, that helps advertise it, that would be really easy for other places to do.
Great.
So there we go.
I like that it's getting busy like before.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Initiative 4 is the traffic safety reports. And I guess the update is, yes, we're doing them. We did one this month.
Yep.
July.
And excuse me, traffic safety coordinator Nick Baller will be presenting the 2020 summary report at the February meeting.
Great. Thank you. Then the CIP, Initiative 5. Any update on that, Kirk? I don't think we're not there yet, right? In terms of
No, I don't recall having a discussion for me being lead on this one, but I certainly don't have an update, and I will step into it as I need to.
okay.
Did I miss? Maybe I missed a meeting and that was discussed. I'm sorry.
Maybe it's because you're vice chair.
Okay.
And it's a regular recurring thing every year. I'm not
Okay.
sure.
Lori, how about after this, before our next meeting, I'll get with you or Andrew and then figure out what I should be doing to get meaningful information. Sorry about that.
No, it's
my
okay.
apologies. I don't actually remember you being assigned this either. Andrew, do you remember that?
I do, but I think it's more just a formality because, like you said, this is kind of a reoccurring item. It really only occurs kind of twice throughout the year. There's next month when I'll be presenting the 2020 PAX summary report, and giving a preview of the next couple years projects, and that'll be the first application of the equity criteria. So the commission will have an opportunity to comment on it then. And then this initiative also covers reviewing the street reconstruction projects, which typically happens in at the October meeting.
Okay.
So it's really the really only movement on this one is Q1 and Q4. Unless
Okay.
commission has comments on ongoing projects throughout the year.
I got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then I think our last one is Initiative 6, which is on the traffic impact studies and TDM. And I think, this is, I believe this is as requested by the Planning Commission. Is that correct, Andrew?
Excuse me. No, it's more as projects come in for application.
Yeah, right.
So, excuse me, we don't have any at the moment.
But we're expecting one.
Yes, at council meeting last night, they reviewed a sketch plan for a combined, I believe it was office and residential proposal at 4917 Eden Avenue, which is where Perkins is located right now.
Okay.
We just got in touch with a consultant to put together a traffic impact study proposal. Once that proposal is approved, then they'll go forward with preparing the actual study. And then that'll be, once I get the, I'll send it off to the commission for review.
And the last one that we reviewed was the 6600 to 6800 France. And did the council vote on that one?
I believe I don't recall whether they voted on it or not.
I thought they rejected it, right?
I didn't see that part of the meeting.
Okay.
I believe the staff recommendation was for denial.
I thought it was
Right. As was the Planning Commission, as was ours. That's why I'm kind of interested.
Right.
I think everybody's on the same page as up to that project. I think somehow I saw something that mentioned not moving forward or recommended to not go forward.
Okay, and that's our last initiative, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, while we were in the middle of the discussion, I missed that Anand had put something in the chat. Anand, do you want to talk about your, I'm not sure if it was the street funding task force or the trash initiative.
I was talking about the street funding task force. Is that the one where Mrs. Plum Smith is working with to clean up with trash and all that?
Nope, those are two different ones. So the street funding
okay.
is how we as residents pay for or how it gets paid for when our streets are resurfaced. Jill Plum Smith is responsible for the organized trash collection initiative.
Yeah,
So
sorry. I was talking about the trash collection.
Okay, go for it.
I was just wondering because I think Andrew, you had mentioned that there's gonna be a kickoff meeting, and I was just wondering like if there's a date for that approximately.
No, they haven't. We're waiting on them to reach out to us as to a date that works for them. So once I have that, I'll let commissioners who are interested know. Student commissioners are certainly welcome to attend. Regular commission members, we can only have up to 4, so that we don't have quorum.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Anand. And then I think our final, we're on our reports and recommendations, point C. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. The reason this came up is that following our lengthy and wonderful animated discussion the last meeting, Vice Chair Logan and I, Johnson and I, had a conversation about, and then subsequently wrote a letter supporting going to, if there's going to be sort of one standard speed limit, we believe that 20 miles an hour is the safer speed limit to go to. So we wrote an email to that effect, and this has not gone to council yet. And so Andrew talked with Chad Milner, the director of engineering, and they thought that if we could actually choose to vote on what we recommend, if we can come to some either general agreement or partial agreement, and then we can see what the vote does in terms of recommending what we as a commission believe the city should do regarding speed limits. So I'm gonna just throw that out there. I think Kirk, do you want to just talk about the reasons that we really believe that 20 was the way to go?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that and fill in as you need. One of them was we border a couple of cities, and Minneapolis has 20 on its border, so our east side would maybe be an awkward change or hard to remember, or a transition that might not go so well. And also, I think St. Louis Park is leaning towards 20 miles per hour too. So for consistency, that was a reason. And another one is, I think if we're going to make a change like this, it better make sure it's meaningful. And so I don't know what the real difference would be, a marginal 5 mile per hour difference. But when I think about 20, my last reason is it's just safety. I have lived in 3 neighborhoods in Edina. One of them was just all residential, very hilly in West Edina. And another one was like a big circle drive with bisecting type of roads in Northwest Edina. And then now I'm in East Edina in a more of a grid system. And I did try hitting 25 miles per hour on all those streets, and I felt like a maniac and pretty good driver, but it was too fast. There's all sorts of risks. I'm not talking about Wooddale, Valley View, or other streets that are wide with higher, but like the majority of Edina, when we look at the maps, are like the streets I mentioned. So those are the reasons I had in my head. Lori, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I think for a couple of reasons, I'm in favor of, if 20 is going to be the majority, or for the majority of the streets, and I am really kind of curious about how the council sees, this one speed limit, because it's never going to be one speed limit, because there are some county roads and, a variety of other roads. So let's just say the majority, particularly the residential streets. I mean, I think the scientific data supports 20 in terms of safety and crash data, and what it does to a body to be hit at 20 versus 25 miles an hour. We're working hard to become the kind of city that really embraces multimodal transportation. So it is, again, safer for those folks who are not in motor vehicles. And then really finally, I have yet to see a police officer stop a speeding car on neighborhood streets. It seems to me the places that they really do stop cars are places like Wooddale, Valley View, Xerxes, some of the more, I guess I'll say, collector streets. And so, given that it does seem to be human nature that people go at the speed limit or a little bit higher, maybe within 5 miles, that if we go to 25, then cars will go 25 to 30. And if we go to 20, then cars will go 20 to 25. Any of those are safer than 25 to 30. So I think mostly, I guess I'd mostly rest my logic on the science.
Thanks, Lori.
Yeah.
So one thing that occurred to me at the last meeting, when I asked Andrew at the two previous meetings for a breakdown of the cost of implementing this, the answer that I received was that we would find out the cost of implementation. And isn't that what you said, Andrew? Can't hear you.
You're muted.
Sorry, I forgot. I said we would know prior to implementation.
But in other words, you want us to make, or we're being asked to make a recommendation with the cost piece left out. And I guess being a new member here, I mean, it's flown by, it'll be, I guess it's 10 months now. Is that typical for this commission that we will be making recommendations to council or providing information with no cost as bearing? Because it seems so odd to me as a citizen and a resident, it makes me really uncomfortable if these commissions are making decisions when costs aren't even included. Can somebody fill me in on that? Is that pretty much typical for a commission? We don't ever discuss costs. We just make decisions. I mean, because I don't, as a person, I mean, that scares me about government. If government's making decisions without considering costs, that concerns me. But can someone fill me in on costs as it relates to the recommendations and decisions that we are supposed to be making? Will those ever be included? And if so, when?
I can start to speak to that, Andrew. Maybe you can chime in as well. My experience is that we make recommendations, we don't make decisions. And our recommendations have not, other than I think the capital improvement projects, we do see what the costs of those are. But that's, is that after the fact, possibly, Andrew?
For the recon projects?
Yeah. Well, no, the CIP. All of it, the sidewalk. I think we see it after the fact.
The PAX projects, yeah, the costs are generally given after the fact.
Yeah.
Before the fact, we have estimates. That's the best we can do. For the recon projects, sometimes the studies have draft costs in them, but generally they don't, because the items that we're asking in those cases well, specifically to the street recon projects, the items that we're asking the commission to review are the transportation related components, not necessarily the financing of the project.
Well, I mean, we're supposed to be.
Let me finish, Peter. So we make recommendations based on policy. I mean, of policy based on our knowledge of where the city sees itself, what the goals are of the city, and then it is really up to staff to propose, cost and try and fit it into a budget and those kinds of things. And honestly, I'm not sure that I know that you're seeing this as $1 million project. If you will notice, we don't have a lot of posted signage for speed limits. I don't think this is the cost that you're thinking of, but sort of regardless of that, that is not, we don't look at that. That is an operational concern and not a policy concern.
Well, when I went through my orientation, my understanding, and this is also when I met with the council, because I was interviewed by them, my understanding is we're supposed to be the conduit. That my understanding, most of the people that work in the city or work for the city don't live in the city, and that the council relies heavily on the commissions to get resident information. And I'm just thinking, gosh, I put some landscaping project together this summer, but I didn't just tell the guy, just start doing it. I got some bids, I looked at the costs. And I guess, what I mentioned last time as it relates to the cost is that, to me, I'd rather see more sidewalks. I mean, I'd rather see bike lanes. And, but here's what I was going to suggest. Can I make a motion that prior to us voting on this, that we get a cost estimate from the city? I'd like to make that motion, because I feel like we can't make that decision without having that information.
Andrew, I know you've been waiting to speak.
Sure. So I do agree, Peter, that cost is definitely something that should be considered. I would say with the engagement report that I brought to the commission at our previous meeting, and the report that I'll be taking to council shortly, at this point I'm looking for guidance on our recommendation. So on our recommended approach, basically asking, are we going in the right direction with before we go deep into preparing signage costs and communication and outreach and enforcement? All those strategies depend on what kind of approach we take. So in order to make movement on those steps, I need to know, does the commission and or council support a 20 mile an hour approach, a 25 mile an hour approach, something different, so that I'm not wasting time putting together scenarios for 3 different approaches. Does that make sense? So when assuming that council, the next step when I bring this report to council will just be to ask them to confirm whether or not they're supportive of the approach that staff is recommending. So the next step for that will then be to prepare an implementation plan. That will include a signage plan, that will include costs. And that then will go to the commission again and will go to council again for approval before it's actually implemented. Does that so there will be a review of the costs. I just need to know what direction council wants staff to go in before I can accurately prepare those costs.
Let me ask another question, because I think you guys are drilling in on the speed limits, which is great. Andrew, can you, again, last time I asked you what the catalyst was, and I probably should have asked a better question, which was, why is staff recommending a change? Not what the report, I got the report, I've read that. Why is staff making that recommendation? Can you fill me in on that?
Sure, because the legislation has recently changed to allow us to make the change. It's a change that has been included, or it's a goal that's been included in our comprehensive plan, our guiding documents, for a long time, almost 2 decades. We have council members that are very interested in applying this new authority within our city, and it supports the goals of several other of our guiding documents, including Living Streets and the Ped and Bike Master Plan.
Andrew, if I could add, wasn't there something, a statistic in our report, a percentage of residents that have been asking for slower speeds?
In the quality of life survey that's issued biannually, about 40% of residents routinely say that traffic and speed is a concern in their neighborhood.
So I think based on the data, there is a clear directive for us to move forward with a speed limit policy. And we've got one approach on the table right now, which is if we're going to go with a more uniform. When I say more uniform, I mean not a tiered approach, but maybe a general approach that is residential streets at one speed limit. We've got one proposal or one approach that's on the table, which is at 20. Andrew's proposal was at 25. Other thoughts?
So just quick here. I really think all that was brought up here makes a lot of sense. But when it comes to city and government, money makes a big difference, absolutely. And every project is always low cost, right? I'm just going to put that on the side for now. But when you look at Lori or Kurt, when you look at the data between 20 and 25, from what I've read so far, 20 doesn't even show on the map. It's basically at 25 when someone get hit by a vehicle going at 25 miles per hour. There's, I think, about 8 or 10% chances of that person not surviving it. At 30 miles an hour, it goes up. At 35, 40, it goes way up, so on and on. But if we go to 20 miles per hour, which doesn't even show in the report that I've seen, it starts with 25. That means, yes, we are much safer, okay? But what's the difference between 20 and 25? I don't know that. Maybe Andrew can give us that through the engineering. But as far as this project goes, we really have to evaluate the cost. We are at 30 miles per hour. It's much more dangerous than 25 or 20. Okay, but we need to see the numbers. We have to know how much money is going to cost us, because we just don't want to go ahead and change everywhere to 25 when it doesn't make sense. You're going to have bottlenecks. You're going to create a lot of issues in addition. So we have to look at it in a very different lenses. I have moved from where I was before. Yes, why do we do it? Because Minneapolis does it. That's not just a good reason, right? But looking at the data, at 25 miles per hour or 20, when someone gets hit, you probably can survive it. The likelihood of death is lower than 30. Because of that, I'm willing to do the change in heart. But at the end of the day, we need to know the cost. We have to know these costs. And maybe it's something we can agree as a team to make it a practice from now on to bring the costs forward. Because it's not difficult for the city to say, we have about 20,000 30 miles an hour signs, okay? We're going to change all of them. It's one click. It shows you the data, shows you the location. We know the cost. We can at least extrapolate roughly compared to the benefit, figure out where we need to be. But I agree, we need to start having that data.
Andrew, can you share my screen? I have a screenshot of a study from ProPublica. Can't guarantee the veracity of it, but it compares speed and chance of dying in a car accident.
There you go. You have it.
Now I'm in two different screens. One is my computer, and my phone is actually the video. So you'd have to share it with.
Can you just, while he's pulling it up, can you remind us the number of fatalities that we've had in the last 10 years, result of motor vehicle? Do we have that data somewhere, Andrew?
We do have that data. I'm not sure that anybody has that accessible at the moment.
All fatalities, Peter?
Andrew, can you link to that, the link I just put in the chat? Maybe that would be easier than sharing a screen.
Let's see.
And Peter, I think you were trying to respond and were muted.
What part did I get out? Anything? Probably preferred that muting. I was asked, no, did I get that question out about the?
You got the question out, and Andrew asked if you were looking for all.
Well, oh, I'm sorry. I guess I was saying, according to what Andrew produced, 50% of the accidents were at intersections, which don't necessarily relate to, how did I say it? Let me see here. They don't, let me look at it, 50%, what was the thing, that statistic? Just look at my notes here. But I guess, why I'm asking that is I think Bokar makes great points about slower, and I guess, we could also go to 15 miles an hour. That would save even more lives. And I guess, but if we don't really have a lot of people dying from accidents, or if and they're not really related to speed, then, what's the hurry? I mean, I think the other part of this is relates to, what's the hurry? Why not see how this develops in Minneapolis? See how it develops in Richfield. See how it goes. Why stick our necks out, and then let's say 3 years from now, they got to unwind the thing, because it's like, oh my God, we created so much traffic. It was a mess. I mean, we all these cities are changing it. Why not find out how it goes? We're not going anywhere, and make the decision later. I don't understand what the urgency is. I don't get it.
I'd like
So-
to. Sorry.
I just, to answer Peter's question, I don't right now have the statistic of how many fatalities we have. I do know in the last 10 years we've only had one pedestrian fatality that's been reported, and that was on France Avenue in, I believe, 2016.
And Andrew, are you able to share Bruce's link? Are you able
Yes.
to?
Yes.
that-
Sorry, I just wanted to give
Yeah.
Peter his chance to
Yeah.
share his comments. Can everyone see this?
Yep.
Can you make it any bigger?
And it seems like we've seen something like this in the past, which is, I think, why I went to the science. The data says, yep, 20.
Well, I think you can interpret this more than one way. I think you can interpret it that anyone that's 70 shouldn't be on the road.
Which, as an aging community, probably isn't realistic.
Right. But joking aside,
Yeah.
I think it's fairly flat from 20 to 25. It starts, inflecting right around 25.
Mm-hmm.
It really starts going up over 30.
Right.
So I think you could use this graph to support different positions. Really, I don't think it's a slam dunk.
Yep.
When I looked at it as 20. But if I can get my thoughts out here, just I like the idea of slower speeds in the neighborhoods a lot. But I'd be opposed to 20 for a couple of reasons. One is the border argument. Most of our border isn't with Minneapolis. And because of that, I'm very worried about people coming into our city and being caught off guard by a speed limit that isn't the norm for them, and just habits, would be hard to change if they come into our city. And because of that, I'm worried about differential enforcement, and I worry about that a lot for people who might, get tickets for something like this or be stopped for something like this. So for the lack of really compelling, science behind it, and the risk of differential enforcement, I'd probably be more comfortable with 25 than 20.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Mindy.
I have been looking at this from another angle. Peter, thank you for the article that you passed on to Andrew, who shared it with all of us, because that's actually the piece that I was thinking about more is how much public input we've gotten about this. Because we can decide what we think is an appropriate speed based on the science and based on healthy data, but if no one pays attention to it, even if we've changed it, then it's done no good. And so I'd be really concerned of not having appropriate public input on this. We've been watching as we've been talking about a completely different topic of flood infrastructure in our neighborhood, that in a neighborhood where people normally respond a lot on anything that's a city-based issue and that has to do with construction in our neighborhood, we're getting very little input. And I think we can't underestimate how much the pandemic has influenced people's ability to give feedback on things that are important like this. That article was talking a lot about, you know, what a big difference it will be if we actually have citizen input and they say, yes, we want to walk and bike more. Yes, we understand why this would be true. And then they will be motivated to slow down when they're driving because they're in favor of changing the speed limits. If they haven't had any input into it, they're likely to see it as an inconvenience as a driver. And I've been trying to pay more attention as I've been driving through Minneapolis recently of, you know, where do they have which signs, what's the speed limit, where, how does that feel to drive at that speed? Even when I'm trying to be conscientious, do I suddenly find myself easily driving faster than that? And that's why it just sort of, there's both the waiting to see how it goes in other cities as one piece of input, but my bigger concern is making sure we really can have public input on this when people have the capacity to give that input.
Great. Thank you so much, Mindy.
And actually that brings the question too of, Andrew, did you have a date at which you were currently supposed to present this to council?
No, I was shooting for this month. I wasn't able to get it on the agenda for the January meeting, so I'm hoping to get it before them in February to, again, just to confirm that we're taking the right approach, or an approach that council is comfortable with.
And is that approach as much about the actual speed limit as the approach of that it would be more uniform as opposed to the tiered structure? Because also for getting public input, we need at least something to put before the public to gather their input. So I see that point. So if it's, you know, is it 20 or 25? Well, that might be part of the public input process, but is it a tiered approach versus we're saying it would be the same everywhere? Do we make that recommendation before it goes to more public input?
Which I think is interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think knowing how it's going in these other places would be such a compelling story. Like, hey, look, Minneapolis did it at 20 and look at all the benefits. I mean, to me, we don't even have that data other than, yes, I understand slower helps and whatever, but really the report talked about cities exponentially larger than Edina. And that's, you know, again, I want to clarify, I'm not against this. I just feel like we're doing this out of order. That's my, you know, that's the concern here. We're not, you know, methodically thinking about this. And somebody mentioned about the striping in the last meetings that was on, I think, Wooddale. And by the way, I was totally in favor of that. And there's still that striping on 56, or no, yeah, 56. People still don't get it, but I think it's great. So, I mean, that's a communication problem, right? That didn't go over well because people didn't get it. And so I just think I love your idea of getting people behind it. You know, it makes it so much easier. Otherwise, you are jamming it down people's throat. And some people are going to like it, and some people are going to be freaking out like they did on Wooddale.
Jill, I think you're the only one we haven't heard from. Am I right? Sorry, you're muted.
You think I get that right by now. I have two things to add. One, I'm not sure that I love the philosophy of Edina waiting to see the neighboring cities' successes or failures. I think Edina has a reputation for a wait and see, and we're kind of late to adopt a lot of things. And personally, I think with the resources and the brain power this city has, that we could be leaders with it. So yes, the data may not be perfect, but you know, there's common sense and, you know, figuring out between 2025 or having one uniform speed. I think we can figure that out without waiting to see if Minneapolis fails. What was my other point here? I lost it, actually.
Do you have a strong sense of, you know, for one thing, uniform versus tiered? Because Andrew, I know that.
Oh, I do like uniform because I think it's easier for drivers.
Yep.
And the same thing to going to Bruce's point, if you have a tiered system, people coming into the city really don't know what they're getting into. I mean, if they know, hey, Edina's 20, but if I come in, you know, through Vernon, is it 10? Is it, you know, 25? So I think it's just honestly for simplicity, just keep it to one.
And do you have where you would, what you would prefer, for example, as a uniform?
Well, I would have to say 25, and this is why I say that. I would prefer people to move slower going down my street, but then again, you have the Wooddales, and going 20 miles an hour down Wooddale is painful. It just seems like you're in molasses, and so having some sort of compromise, I think that's a great idea. And to your point, Lori, that you said earlier, I don't think police are pulling people over, you know, in neighborhoods. They're getting more on like the county roads or, you know, the France Avenues and whatnot. So I would say keep it at one speed limit to 25.
Okay. So, Andrew, do you think, you know, are we, well, Kirk, do you have anything else to add? Because I know, yeah, Jill.
I just remembered. I just remembered my last point. I also think it's a little bit, I don't want to say risky, to say we need to know the cost. Yes, cost is a huge factor, but that's not our area of expertise. I don't know what it costs for, you know, a safety study or changing the signs out. And I don't know the city's budget, and I don't keep track of it. And even if I did get something from online, that wouldn't be in detail to say, oh, you know, to change these signs is too expensive. I don't know what too expensive means. And so I don't want to put a value judgment on that. I don't know if anyone can add to that, but, and maybe all of you do know what things cost and what the budget is, but I don't. And so I would need a lot more information about the whole gestalt of the city before I say that's too much or that's too little or that's feasible or that's not.
Then I think the right approach would be, okay, we have so much data when it comes to 30 miles an hour. Okay, we gotta see the fatalities, we gotta see the crashes, the report when it comes to 30 miles per hour. On a main drag, Kearney Road, also on a small little neighborhood area. We also try to find the same data when it comes to 25 miles an hour. You look at that delta to figure out, okay, if it's even worse moving or not, or even go to 30 miles an hour. If we decide to go to 25, we do the same thing for 25. 30 miles an hour, get the current data, the baseline, figure out what it is, then go to 25. Otherwise, we do not have a justification to change a sign because we don't have a good input from the public. Two, we don't have the cost. I mean, a lot of variables here. Sorry, guys. That's what I would do. Look at the baseline at 30 miles an hour, compare it to whoever did 25 miles an hour. We look at the data as well. See that delta. Then we're gonna have, okay, yes, it's safer, we can go, or not, it's not. Really, we're just moving the needle, we're just doing something different.
Mindy?
I was also wondering if there's any way, you know, in the quality of life survey that, you know, people that were concerned about speeds or traffic in their neighborhood, if we have any way of breaking that down by where they are. Because it just occurred to me, oh, you said the one fatality was on France Avenue. That's a street we can't control the speed limit on because it's a county road. And if all of the, if our biggest concerns as a, if citizen concerns are primarily on roads that we can't change the speed limit on, then I wonder how effective the policy can be. Because we know that one of the most pedestrian and bicycle unfriendly places is France Avenue in the Southdale area. And that takes a much longer plan to figure out how to resolve that.
Kirk?
I think these are all excellent points. After our last meeting, I was under the impression that we were endorsing or supporting going forward with that one approach, and it didn't seem like I wasn't ready to endorse something or recommend it. And after this discussion, it just seems like it's important for us to know what are we really recommending, and even the approach seems muddied to me in my mind. So in my imagination, though, even when I was saying when I don't want to drive 25 in these short gridded streets or these curvy streets, so that's most of Edina for me. I was thinking a good approach would be to have ability to go faster on wider throughput streets that are not the common smaller neighborhood streets. That's all.
I'm gonna suggest that where we are as a commission is that we have all given Andrew our thoughts on this, and we let Andrew proceed with his presentation to the council as is. Is that unless folks are thinking that they want to make a motion to do something different?
Can you recap? Would it be helpful to recap what the presentation to the council would be on behalf of what we provided either last month, or where are we ending up with this?
I believe that where we're ending up with is that Andrew's original proposal of last month is that the uniform speed is 25, except for those significant, I don't know if they're collectors or county roads. Is that right, Andrew?
Make sure I'm not muted again. Okay, I'm not. Yes, so the approach that was presented at the last meeting was essentially a 25 mile an hour uniform approach, with a handful of exceptions on some of our state aid roads. Trying to pull up that map just for reference again. Some of the comments that the commission brought up that I'm planning to bring to council, one would be the concern about the lack of public engagement. And I think that's something that we can reevaluate as we're developing an implementation plan. So I'm curious to get council's thoughts on that. The second would be kind of beefing up our rationale for why we're doing this. Talking more specifically about what are the catalysts for doing this, and what are the benefits that we expect to see from doing this. Let me share my screen here quick. I've got the map up. So this is the, can I zoom out a little bit? Here we go. So these are the recommended speed limits, as this is the recommended approach that staff is currently recommending. Again, the 25 mile an hour default speed with a handful of our MSA streets at 30 miles an hour.
And some of the school zones at 20 and even 15.
Right. Yep. The school zones, for the most part, are as they are right now. Some are a little bit more, are slightly more restrictive, but by and large, they're matching what's there right now.
So I just have to ask, are people comfortable driving 25 on the gold streets? I mean, the circles and the little grid streets I just want to find out my peers here. I mean, if it were posted 25, is that a valid speed? And what about the marginal incremental a bit above up to, 25 to 30 would probably be what people might feel welcome to do. But it just doesn't seem like going from 30, which probably isn't enforced or measured very well, to 25 is, I don't understand the marginal benefit. And I don't understand why, most of these roads would be supporting of a 25 mile per hour vehicle. Wooddale, France, I mean, all those, Valley View, yes, I want to go faster than 20. I shouldn't talk so much. I mean, like, pick any of these little windy roads, circles, gridded streets. Do you really feel comfortable driving 25? Have you tried?
Well, I mean, Kirk, this has been going on, as we just pointed out, there's been one death on France Avenue. So, I mean, I don't know, I'm not following people around to find out how fast. Maybe they're only driving 25. I don't know that just because it says 30, people are driving 30. I don't know that we have that data on every street. I think, but obviously it's not a safety concern. But to clarify, are you asking us to endorse the recommendation of staff? Is that what you're asking us to vote on? Because I don't think we can do that because we don't agree with. We were asking for more information. Is that what you're trying to ask us to do at this point?
To be clear, I'm not specifically asking the commission for anything. This was an item on the agenda that the commission moved to add. I'm saying if the commission wants to make a recommendation one way or the other, I will include that in my presentation to the council. Otherwise, I will just include the comments as they are included in the minutes.
And that's why it was on the agenda, actually, Peter, is to see if we wanted to either recommend to endorse this approach or a different approach. And it does seem to me that that at this point, unless somebody wants to make a motion on that Andrew's including our comments in his approach might be the better course of action.
Andrew, I'd like to have comments included that we'd like to know what the costs are. The commission, or at least if I have to make a motion, I'll do it, but at least that the commission is saying, gosh, this is interesting. What is the cost of doing this? I think number one. And I guess I, also would like to know, because when I asked you a moment ago what the reason for this was, it was, well, this person wants it and staff wants, I mean, I'd like to hear from them as to what, because I don't really, just because they want it, I'd like to know why. Yeah, okay, council person wants X, wants this change. Well, why? Well, I mean, what's the reason?
Peter, I'm going to interrupt you because I heard Andrew's full answer, and I already, if you've been on the commission for a while, you know the answer. It's in the comprehensive plan. This has been a direction the city has wanted to go for a number of years. There's been feedback in the quality of life surveys that the change in the law is what enables us as a city to move forward on the path that has been desired for 2 decades. So I heard that, not that it was one person or this other person or staff. I think this has been in the comprehensive plan for 2 decades.
2 decades they've been talking about dropping the speed limit when it wasn't even allowed by law.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
But well, anyway, whatever. I mean, that's fine.
And Peter, I know you weren't part of the commission when we went through the comprehensive planning process. And it wasn't until I went through the whole process that I appreciated the amount of public input, the number of times it's reviewed, the pieces of public information or of public survey information and public input that went into creating the comprehensive plan. So that helps me to see that when it's been in the comprehensive plan, that has included a lot of public input for many years of people requesting this. While at the same time, I still think we need more public input before it would be implemented.
So, Peter, I guess I would say in my presentation to council, I will make sure to comment that there's concerns about moving forward without having a sense of what the costs are.
Thank you.
I'd also think in terms of cost, Andrew, I think maybe you did at least give some indication when we were talking about a tiered approach versus a uniform approach. If it's a uniform speed limit, you need signs at the edges of the city that say on all roads where it's not posted the speed limit is 20, as opposed to if it's different on different types of streets, you need more individual speed limit signs indicating that. So when I think of at least that amount of cost, there is something that we can tell that if we have a tiered system, there will be more cost than if we have a uniform approach.
Correct. Generally, the uniform approaches require less signage because you have less of those transition points where you're going from one speed limit to a different speed limit.
So it's not a direct amount, but at least we can get a concept that one approach would cost more than another approach. If that's helpful at all.
Yeah, in my opinion, like I said, generally speaking, the uniform approach is less expensive than a tiered approach.
I think that's important to say. I think that's important. I think another advantage for the uniform approach, as I mentioned before, the risk of being confused and a non-resident being more easily confused and differential enforcement. I don't think they're going to stop people like me. I think they might stop people that don't look like me. So I think a uniform approach makes sense.
Any other key comments folks would like Andrew to include from the commission?
Just the lack of engagement, right? Public engagement, you got to add that.
Concerns about the lack of public engagement, yes.
Yep. And the fact that also it's on our is in the comprehensive plan that maybe it's not the priority right now, right? You know, so it's not easy. It's very hard. Yes, we are innovators. We want to be innovators, but maybe it's not.
That is. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Yes, that is. So yes, the concern about the lack of engagement is a point that I'll make. But also you reminded me that is a question for council as to whether or not they still see this as a priority. Another thing that has been previously mentioned a few times are the civil unrest and the varying attitudes toward law enforcement and the changes in that we've seen throughout the last year and recent years. That likely will have I think that will have an impact on how this is implemented or when this is implemented. So I think those are good questions for council.
Yeah, but if you give them the data though on the baseline of death at 30 and 25 or 20, I think that would help make an easier decision. And then the counterbalance to implementing this would be to make sure that we do not have more ticketing going toward, from police to anybody, right? Because of the speed limit. Because you have to have, every time you do a project, you're changing something from X to Y, you're improving it. But you have a counterbalance, making sure that whatever you're improving, you're not making it worse. You're not making everything else worse within that project.
Well, and that's why I sent that article out, because there's unintended consequences of this. That's why I'm suggesting to take our time. And it actually hurts. That article talked about how those changes that were made adversely affected the people that, minorities, people of color. I mean, which I guess is the same thing. But, it affected those people the most because of the lack of information and things like that. And so that's why I'm not saying not to do this. I'm just saying, let's take our time. Let's do it right. And that's it.
One thing, in addition to Bokar was mentioning the fatality statistics. I think that's important to get that data. I was thinking one thing we didn't talk about though is and it's sort of inherent in the comprehensive plan, is the feeling aspect of it. Even if people aren't getting killed, if they're not out walking and biking, because of a feeling of being unsafe. And I don't know how you quantify that, if anyone's quantified that before, but that would be another important data point, you know, as we look about changing.
Yeah, people's perception of safety.
Yeah.
Because we talked about that a lot when we did the bike and ped plan, especially
Yeah.
of bikers and their perception of how comfortable they were didn't necessarily match with what the actual statistics were.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else that hasn't been said yet that needs to be said for Andrew's benefit? All right, let's move on then.
Let me just say thank you for engaging in this conversation.
You bet.
It was worth the time to talk about it again.
I agree.
So, yep.
Thank you for all the feedback.
So Matt's not with us, so the street funding task force report won't happen. So are we on chair and member comments?
Yep.
Okay, can we take it from the top then?
Mindy?
No additional comments. Thank you.
Kirk?
When we have our traffic study next month from Nick, is that something that we get to see ahead of time?
It'll be in the agenda packet the Friday before, like it usually is.
Thank you. I appreciate those. No comments. Other than that, that's it.
Okay.
No comment. Thanks.
Peter? Peter, anything?
Peter, you're muted. Okay.
Maybe I'll circle back to him. Bruce?
My only comment is I really enjoyed the discussion tonight. You know, there's things, ways I hadn't thought about, different points of view, and for us to be able to have different viewpoints and share them fully and without rancor, it was nice. Too bad the whole city isn't like that, huh?
Nihar? Peter, did you have any comments? You're muted, but I'm seeing you say no.
No, I did have something to say. I just was going to say I really enjoy this. I'm glad that I signed up for this, and thank you all.
Great to hear.
Anand?
No comments from me. Thank you.
And Lori?
Did you get Jill?
Oh, sorry, Jill.
I'll wait my turn.
No, I usually leave Lori for last, so.
No further comments from me other than it's, good to hear a lot of voices.
All right, Lori.
I just have one, which is that next month, actually I have two. Next month at the February meeting is our elections. So be thinking about whether you or someone that else on the commission you think would make a good chair or vice chair. And that will be my last meeting as chair, which is very exciting, probably for all of you. So that's one thing. And then and elections come at the beginning or the end of the meeting, Andrew? Do you know?
We've typically done them at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay.
Other commissions have done them at the end of the meeting. It's entirely up to you.
Okay. Well, if folks are going to have a hard time making the meeting, if you know that in advance, if you can be there for part of it, let's try and figure out where it would be best placed based on having everybody present. And then the only other thing, it's just really a point of information. The MJ has invited a couple of chairs to participate in the elections or in the interviews for new commission members this year. So I get to be one of those interviewers. And one thing that I'm curious, I know we have one spot that they will be filling. through the elections, that we will be filling through the elections. And I'm wondering, folks, if you have thoughts about what kind of either skill sets or whatever we might want to help balance our commission. If anybody has any thoughts, reach out to me, I guess, unless you know something right off the top.
I really like the engineering part that like Bokar brings. So anybody that has more engineering, really science-based would be helpful, I think. And then can I ask, what there's two positions on this commission? Is it chair and vice chair? Is that the only ones we're voting on?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I can add to, I agree with Peter, having the engineering side is great. And it's also nice, two other skill sets that I wish I had, but you know, I'm trying to learn. But the change management aspect that transportation touches on, a lot of the behavioral things. And then also, the policy, like people that have policy change and influence type of roles and experience. So those are, I think, also very valuable.
Great. Anybody else? I'll put that in the hopper. It is, by the way, it is my recommendation. I had a conversation with MJ yesterday, that as a general matter of course, that they reach out to the commissions prior to this process to actually ask that question. Because, you know, we've never been asked that in the past, and we probably have a better sense of what we would like in terms of skill sets and perspective. So she's going to start to, we're going to work on that process for next year. And that's all I've got.
All right,
And we're into staff comments.
I've just got a couple things. Hennepin County has placed traffic cameras on France Avenue between 54th and Highway 62. This is the area that they restriped last year to try and address safety concerns with people passing in the shoulder. The county and the city have both received a number of concerns with the new layout now that has the two-way center left turn lane. So the county is reviewing traffic data for the next week, and then they'll review that footage for any observed unsafe behavior and report back to the city. So stay tuned on that.
That's great to hear, because I noticed a UPS truck parked obviously in the go lane, because that's the only place they can park when they make a delivery on France to one of the residences, and so everybody has to go around them in the turn lane. So I'll be eager to hear what they see.
As are we. I was recently approached by Bird about whether or not the city would be interested in partnering with them for a scooter sharing program, and I politely declined based on our recent experience. Said it's not a priority for us at this time, but we can maybe look at it at a future date. And then I think I sent this email out, but Metro Transit announced that due to some construction delays, the Southwest Light Rail project is expected to be delayed from their previously planned opening of 2023. So I assume that means now it'll be opening 2024 at the earliest. But they said they would be providing some more information later this year as it came up. And that's all I have.
Fantastic. Anything else for the good of the whole? The next meeting is February something.
February 18th.
18th. Okay.
I also want to point out that the joint, I finally got an answer on when the joint work session is scheduled. It's September 9th.
Oh, wow.
What time?
Yeah. 5:30.
And that's the work session with the council?
Correct.
Okay.
We usually, I don't know why, for some reason our commission didn't get scheduled earlier. So that's why we are kind of stuck with a later date, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a bummer. If we're going to do anything on the boulevard trees, well, we can propose it as an initiative prior to that, though, can't we?
You can, yeah.
Okay. Can we put that as an agenda item on one of our next meetings?
I noticed it's on the parking lot item
Yeah.
along with another thing in our, yeah, what can we do about that?
Well, I'd like to propose that we add at least the boulevard trees as an initiative.
Yeah, let me, we can certainly, I can certainly add it as a discussion topic at a future meeting. Let me talk with MJ about just make sure I understand what the formal process is for asking for a change to the work plan. I'm not sure if there's a separate tool to use for that, or if like an advisory communication is used for that, or I just
Okay.
want to make sure we've got the right process in place. But I can follow up with you on that, Lori.
Sounds good. Can we stay on after the meeting for a minute?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, if there is no other business, then I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Awesome.
I'll second.
Perfect.
Third. Oh.
Any discussion? If you are in favor of adjournment, please respond to Andrew's roll call with aye.
Commissioner Aller,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Kane,
Aye.
Commissioner Lafferty,
Aye.
Commissioner McCarthy,
Hi.
Commissioner Plum Smith,
Aye.
Chair Richmond.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Nice to see you all.
Thank you.
Good night.
Andrew, you still on?